What's good, Atlanta? This is the Blog and Dirty podcast, where Dirty Bird is the word. If you haven't heard, I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer for FanSided. Thanks for joining in today. This is an Atlanta Falcons podcast for the FanSided network of sites, Blog and Dirty. My name is John Buhler. Again, I cover college football primarily for FanSided, but I'm a diehard Atlanta Falcons fan, and they're putting me through it, and they're putting all of us through it. But before we begin, be sure to smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, give us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere this podcast's up. Really helps the show grow. Got a short week this week here because your Atlanta Falcons, after playing a terrible game versus the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday, they got Thursday Night Football this week at the rival Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have kind of been in control of the division for the most part. Atlanta lost a really close game week one on a Younghoe Koo miss. Tampa's kind of been in control. They've been kind of sputtering a little bit, but like New Orleans is just as bad as we are. Carolina's not quite there. So by default, Tampa's got to win the division. So got a kind of a short show today for you guys. Again, I'll be coming to you guys again semi-live with 3 yards and a cloud of punt in the post game after what will probably be the Falcons' 10th loss of the season on Thursday night. So, I'll be in rare form with that. I'll be in a different location because all my fiance and I do is dogs at this point. So, without further ado, let's get on to our first run of the day. I'm going to run with this. This is the one thing I kind of feel confident about. I got a feeling that the pass rush could be a difference maker for the team this time around. There's other things, too, that I think we could spend. Maybe we could catch Tampa while they're napping. Again, it's a short week, so, it's against a rival. The level of speed is going to intensify a little bit. Keep in mind that Kirk Cousins beat the Buccaneers twice last year, including the Thursday night game here in Atlanta, in and around, right around Halloween, if you will. And then he kind of turned into a pumpkin afterwards. But outside of last week where he threw a lot of picks, he's played okay. It hasn't really been his fault that the team's not winning. But I'll say this. I think the pass rush could be a difference maker. I think in the week one, the only time they got pressure on Baker Mayfield was like singular. It might have been 1 or 2 sacks of note. We have seen the Falcons to be able to, draw up some pressure against everybody they've been playing, particularly with the elevation of James Pearce Jr. as a star performer. Jalon Walker looks great as well. And again, the whole cast of characters there in the pass rush and the defensive front seven, they'll play hard for a while. And then the offense will stink. They'll get their ass kicked. And then we'll get carved to pieces by a high-quality team. Again, I don't know if Tampa is at the same level as Seattle is right now. But it always seems like Sam Darnold saves his best for when he plays the Falcons for whatever reason. Or really when he goes up against Kirk Cousins. Not that they were ever teammates or anything like that, but their paths have crossed, sort of, so to speak, here anyway. But I feel like this pass rush, like you knock Tampa out of it early, maybe you force a turnover, maybe you can steal some points defensively because we can't trust our offense at this point now with the people in charge of it. But sometimes I wonder, if we had the pass rush we did now versus what we had at the start of the year, if we would have won that game, if things would have been different. I kind of go back to last year's season, last year's season. It's been a long weekend, man. Long week too. Here's kind of what I'll say to that. I remember last year how like the secondary was playing so well at the beginning of the year, and then it fell apart. Then it was kind of like the offense was playing so good, then it fell apart. It's just kind of like we can't get everything going at the same time because this team is so disjointed. Only the really joy I have watching the Falcons play right now is to see the young players step up on defense and, watch Bijan Robinson kind of go to work. Haven't seen Drake London play in a while. It has been nice to see Kyle Pitts start to make some plays, but this team's toast. And the fact we don't have a first-round draft pick next year kind of stinks because, I'd be way more involved talking about the draft at this point. But right now, I really don't care. The good news is the guy that was our first-round draft pick, James Pearce Jr., he's on the team now. So, like, That's all I can really hope for here. I hope that it makes a difference this time around. I'm not entirely sure, but We got to be optimistic here. Okay, that was enough optimism for the show. Let's move on to some pessimism here. Some second run. I'm not going to lie. I came across this on social media. Somebody created a superhero poster featuring Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson as a find a way man and pistol boy. It's absolutely hilarious. It's bad when a coach becomes synonymous with a phrase within the media, or a coach also becomes synonymous with our player becomes synonymous with like a gimmick, if you will. You look at the New York Yankees. It's right out there in front of us. They always says that. All the Dan Quinn nonsense of be about the ball, and every sort of redundant cliche you could imagine and find. From the Pete Carroll tree. Yeah, the Pete Carroll tree is it's become a branch. It's a tumbleweed. It's not doing a damn thing right now. There are a few teams in the NFL that are worse than the Falcons. I think the Raiders and the Commanders might be among them. But man, no time for that. And then you talk about pistol boy with the offense that Zach Robinson runs, particularly with Michael Penix Jr. out there. We used to always slander Michael Thomas with the Saints and call him a slant boy because that's all he could do is run a slant. We also, it's better than being 11 personnel to people to death with the Sean McVay offense or the gimmicky air raid. It's just whatever it is with Josh Heupel. It's just when you have stuff like this kind of be attached to it, it's kind of hard to shed that reputation. But I saw this. So it's like Raheem Morris is on a chopper riding like this, as find a way man looking up. And then you got a pistol boy, Zach Robinson in the sidecar with a notepad looking like Robin. So it's like Batman and Robin. It's unbelievable. It's so funny. And I think it's that these guys are dead in the water when D'Orlando Ledbetter and the AJC is quote tweeting on Twitter. He's like, this is so funny. Not to say that D-Led really carries much weight or anything like that, but I mean, he is the beat writer for the AJC that is no longer in a circulation. I mean, it's on an online platform, which is great. But just to kind of hear after every single game where the Falcons just get their ass hellaciously kicked, and for Raheem Morris to say, you know what, we gotta find a way. We gotta find a new way to do this. We gotta find a way. And I guess kind of just because it's comedy, because I've got 4 more games of this crap, and then we're gonna hire some other guy who's not gonna be good because that's just who we are. I just kind of want to unpack maybe why it's failed for these two guys real quick, and then I'll get to the second half of our show. I think for Raheem Morris, what has hurt us is he may have been a great defensive coordinator for the Rams. He may be a very savvy defensive mind. It may be some combination of the Peter principle. He may be a very likable guy. He may have a lot of respect for the organization, but it's almost like his lack of coaching acumen, or really his inability to adjust within the context of a game, has ruined any chance he'll ever be an NFL head coach again. I don't know what he's going to do after this. He'll probably go back to the Rams and probably be the best defensive coordinator in the league, because that's just our lot in life here. But it became readily apparent during the Panthers game in Week 3 when there was a few plays that didn't go their way, and they're down big, and we didn't see any adjustments here. And I think when you have a coach like that who cannot adjust in the league where everybody is a professional, everybody is, for lack of a better word, the best of the best, you can't just sit on your thumbs. You can't twiddle your fingers. Everybody deserves better. And again, the fan base is completely tuned out of this team, and I don't blame them one bit. This is the worst stretch the team's been since I've been alive. Again, I was born in 1989, so I kind of caught the tail end of the 82 to 91 downward spiral there with the Gerald Riggs years, basically, and probably the tail end of Bart, if I'm not mistaken. But what I'll say is with this, it's just we can't be coming up dead every time we play a game because we're just so horribly coached. And honestly, I think Raheem Morris, he's not going to do it. I think he's best served to go coach in college. I think he could be a motivator in that way. I think he could be a recruiter. He could schmooze. He could pander. But when it comes to the schematics, he's just so over his skis right now. Maybe if he goes back to a different role, maybe he'll be great at it again. But right now, he's forgotten how to do algebra. And everybody out there in the NFL is able to do, multi-derivative calculus. This guy does not solve for X. And speaking about a guy who doesn't know how to solve for X, Zach Robinson. The reason it's probably spelled ZAC is because he couldn't do more than one more letter there. The H threw him off. Maybe it's an X. Zaxby's. I'd rather trust the Zaxby's right down the street to get my order right than Zach Robinson to call a play. It's so in his head. It's so in his head. This is kind of like a really bad baseball manager who can't handle a bullpen or rotation correctly. These are all former catchers. They think they know what they're doing, and they don't. It's like this former quarterback who knows what he's doing, but he really doesn't. I think the thing that really bothers me about this is he has absolutely no feel on third down. Like, you can get two really good plays here, and then third down, doesn't matter what the distance is. It could be 3rd and 2, it could be 3rd and 8, it could be 3rd and 18. I don't trust this to convert because the guy calling plays there. Doesn't matter if he's up in the booth or on the sidelines. It's not his bag. He just doesn't have the feel for it. And again, like, I'm a Georgia fan. That's my alum. That's my team. I go through the great stuff on Saturdays, and I go through the bad stuff with us on Sundays. And it's gonna be Thursday this week, so thanks for freeing on my Sunday, so I can do it early Christmas to my family. Anyway, like, I feel, you look at the duo there of Kirby Smart and Mike Bobo and compare it to Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson. Kirby Smart's an elite adjuster. He's the best motivator I've ever seen. He's always a recruiter. Tactically, he's fine. I mean, I wouldn't say like he's ever going to really work in the NFL, because I think he knows that. He's coaching before. He's like, you know what? I'd rather have the best players I can possibly get on the simplest plays as effectively as possible than try to out-scheme somebody. Maybe Raheem Morris can take a page out of Kirby Smart's playbook. I don't know if he did. We're talking about a guy that I don't think can do algebra anymore. And then as far as Raheem Morris is concerned, Zach Robinson's concerned, like, Mike Bobo is the only offensive coordinator up for the Broyles Award, meaning he's one of the 5 best coordinators in college football. You got the guy from Indiana, Matt Patricia, now at the Ohio State, the guy from Texas Tech, and then a guy from I don't even remember who the other one is. Indiana, Texas. Oh, Miami, Corey Heatherman. There you go. That's the other guy. Mike Bobo has taken a lot of crap over the years as offensive play caller. He really would like get in his head, particularly in goal line situations. But having a quarterback he can trust, who fits like hand in glove there with Gunnar Stockton, the whole playbook's open. They spread the ball around to everybody. They're not just trying to get it to Bijan Robinson every play. Yes, they throw the ball to Zach Branch a lot, but they spread out to like Lawson Lucky, Oscar Delp. They've got a boatload of running backs, ton of wide receivers. And I don't think it matters, like, it's great to see Georgia win, as opposed to like Bijan Robinson have 200 all-purpose yards in the game and they lose by 40. Like, it doesn't do anything for anybody. I'll say this. I'll say this as fairly as I can. I thought it was going to work with Zach Robinson because I bought into the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. I really did. And now I realized, no, I don't know where we go from here. I kind of find myself sitting here thinking with Zach Robinson, like, if he has done irreparable damage to his brand, these last 2 years have not been kind to him as an offensive coordinator. There's no mid game. It's either deep bombs or short stuff. And he just, it's like a guy who's just afraid to call certain stuff because he knows he questions if his talent can do it. His talent's going to have to do it. You just have to call the right plays, because when you call those plays that are in the middle route of the middle part of the field, then that potentially opens up some of the deeper stuff, because they got to contain that too. And then, it opens up the shorter stuff too, because they got to respect the middle part. You got to have a complementary offense. It can't just be one-dimensional. We can't let them personnel people to death, and we can't be relying on good old pistol boy and find a way, man. I should probably get that poster framed if I could find it for Christmas. My mom would be like, she'd be like, too funny. That's what she would say. All right, let's move on to our second half of the show with some pass. Arthur Blake's no longer a good owner. I'm sorry. At one point in time, he was. And maybe he's a really good dude. Maybe he wants to do a good job. But I don't know exactly when this occurred, but we have passed the Al Davis Rubicon. We don't go back to it being good. Like we've gotten into the eccentric octogenarian era of Arthur Blank's ownership. We're kind of there with Jerry Jones. We've been there with Mike Brown since birth. We were with Al Davis with that when I was growing up in the 2000s. I'm not going to say it is what it is, but like this is our reality. And the biggest thing that I would say here that leads me to know that he's no longer a good owner, not that he's become complacent about the losing. I don't think that that's even the case. I think that he treats the Falcons like a family as opposed to a business. And I think it's a very weird dichotomy because I think there's people who work for the Falcons up in Fire Branch that kind of feel like they're on their their heels all the time, kind of always, keeping their head in a swivel and around there. They're kind of playing nervous. I've kind of always felt that impacted the team on the field because they knew Arthur Blank's, a shrewd businessman. But now it's kind of become family. It's kind of become like, these are the people that I really like. I think Arthur Blank's been burned a few times by less than stellar individuals. But I mean, look, that's the nature of working. There are people I've worked with in all the different areas of my life who I don't care for. We all do. We're not different. This is just because people are people. But when you empower mediocrity, particularly a head coach and even a general manager in some capacities, what's that telling your players? What's that telling your support staff? What's that telling the people who work for you? More importantly, what's that telling the fans? And as I'm sitting here watching Raheem Morris, can't even tie his shoes right. I'm looking across the board at some of the other head coaches that were up for the job. I'm glad we didn't get Belichick. I'm glad we were swayed away from hiring Belichick. That would have been great because he's been terrible for North Carolina. But we were never going to get Jim Harbaugh. Honestly, I don't want that psychopath anywhere near this team. The guy's insane. I would also say that, why couldn't we hire Mike Vrabel, the Arthur Smith of it all? Look at Virginia Tech right now. Virginia Tech fired Brent Pry, who was a defensive coordinator under James Franklin. And Penn State's like, we're done with James Franklin after an 0-3 start to the year. They hired him, and James Franklin's pretty much bringing everybody of note with him to Blacksburg, including Brent Pry. So Brent Pry is going to be back for the team in the role that he probably is better suited for. Instead of Virginia Tech head coach, he's Virginia Tech defensive coordinator. I don't know if that's ever really happened, but I know Freddie Gonzalez has served in a couple of roles like that. I think Jerry Glanville, things of that nature. Maybe that's happened in basketball because they're all retreads at this point anyway. But it's just very funny. And I guess to kind of get back to it with the Arthur Blank of it all is, you could have had Mike Vrabel. You could have had Mike McDonald, who kicked our ass. The guy went to Georgia. The guy went to Centennial High School up in Fulton County. He's in his late 30s. He's not yet 40. Harbaugh saw value in him. He was with Michigan. He was the Ravens. Now he's with Seattle. He got full buy-in from his players this past offseason. Nobody missed any voluntary OTAs. This is a team that I couldn't really peg early in the season. I was carefully optimistic about them, but basically all the wins I thought the Cardinals were going to get, they've gained them too. So, when you're seeing your mistake be compounded in real time, relentlessly, not only do we make the wrong hire, but the guy we could have hired is already over there, doing better. You feel so stupid. You feel like you're walking around with a Nokia brick phone when everybody else has an Apple or Android or some iPhone or Android at this point. What are we doing? I will say that Arthur Blank tried. Arthur Blank has always tried. He's always tried to do good stuff for the city of Atlanta, and I'll always respect him for that. As a matter of fact, he was the commencement speaker when I graduated from UJ back in fall of 2012. So right around this time, 13 years ago? Jesus, I'm so old. But anyway, I don't know what we do here. I don't know if we hand the ball off to Josh Blake or some other thing at this point, but the decision making with this franchise has been poor all the way down. I came across what I think was Brett Jukes, who works for the team, and the process of how to hire Raheem Morris and what they went through. Like it was just a running gag list of like all the things they did wrong in the hiring process. Look at it this way: you cannot keep employing somebody who doesn't win games and ask them to win games because it's just not happening. You know what? Let's move on to the last part of our show. Let's move on to it with some punt here. Let's make a pick against the spread for TNF. I've barely looked at this. I put about as much prep into this as Tony Romo or Raheem Morris, the Atlanta Falcons, because that's all the respect they deserve from me. Right now, looking at FanDuel Sportsbook, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are laying 4.5 points. The associated money lines are Tampa minus 235 and Atlanta plus 194, and the over/under total is 44.5. I'm taking Tampa to cover, man. I'm taking Tampa to win by 10. Which will be an improvement over what we saw last week. So I think Atlanta's going to win something. I think Tampa's going to win something like, God, like 24-14. And at that point, I think that's 34 plus 4. I don't know. Take the under and the Buccaneers laying points. Like that's kind of where I'm at with this here. Tampa's got something to play for. We don't. It's at their place. We swept them last year. They're on the precipice of sweeping us this year. I'd be pleasantly surprised if we won this game. The only way this happens is if like the Buccaneers just shoot themselves in the foot, which I don't envision it happening because Todd Bowles has actually figured out how to be a good head coach. Raheem Morris, not a clue. Not even one little effing clue. And this was episode 71 of the Blog and Dirty Podcast. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter at Buhler118. You can follow the show on Twitter at Blog and Dirty. You can follow along on YouTube at Blog and Dirty FS. Give us a 5-star review on your platforms like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Again, give us a 5-star review. I'm grinding through this. Got some awesome playlists here on YouTube. We got post games. We got our weekly shows. This is where this one's going to go. Got some interviews when we did that back in the day. We're over 350 subscribers. I'd love to get to 500 before the start of next year. And I'll promise to keep bringing the heat as best as I can. I'm wearing jacket because I'm cool. And I'm cool on this team. But you know what? You guys are cool. I've been enjoying every minute of this, even though this team's driving me absolutely insane. You're the best. Once again, thanks for listening. And this is the Blog and Dirty Podcast.